Hello. Welcome back to my channel, and today we're going to talk about something that's been on my mind recently, and I actually going to try something a little bit different today. I don't actually have an outline or a script, so this is completely full-on freeform, which, now that I think about it, might be a mistake, but I hope that there is some way, some form of structure that I can maintain. This is also practice for me, that when I do something like this that's very in the moment and with very free form, that I'm gonna find a way to help everybody understand. If there are major points after I've rewatched this, there's definitely gonna be some timestamps that I'm gonna be including. But I remembered in the previous video that I was going to be talking a lot about personality integration and, well, shadow theory, which, again, I'm going to just quickly straight off the bat admit, I'm not actually, I'm still learning those concepts. But I do want to share a few lessons, or a couple lessons, that I believe are really useful. Well, they've been really useful to me. And so with that being said, I want to have a for the record moment where what I think those lessons are, something I could look back on, and maybe if other people see this video, that they also find some nuggets of insights or wisdoms that they think would be useful for them. So really, it's just up to whatever you interpret this to be, and you're free to take it however you want to. Feel free to interact about it and tell me what your thoughts are and tell me what you think. So when I hear shadow theory, I'm actually reminded of, because I attended a discourse by John Beebe, and I was definitely excited about it, because this is one of the very first moments where I could actually listen to a live conversation or a discussion about somebody who's, I would say, been working on type or in personality theory for a lot of years. And because that person really went for it, I definitely took some notes. And one of the things that really stood out to me was when he mentioned, and I'm going to paraphrase because my memory is terrible, that when you put a lot of focus on your valued functions, you inevitably cast a large shadow over your unvalued, or the functions that you aren't having a preference or lean towards, which makes it kind of, well, difficult for you to really integrate and be a well-rounded person. So what I kind of took from that, how I interpreted it, is if you're putting so much more emphasis on developing only the 4 functions that you're taught or that you've learned about. So in this case, using myself as an example as an ENFP, so that would be the NE, the FI, the TE, and the SI, and you're just constantly just focusing on that, and you haven't been able to look into yourself and say, hey, what about the other functions? How will that, I guess his point was that it would prove to be, I believe the term is detrimental, or somewhat of a problem for you in the long run, which I thought was really fascinating. I know that there's some personality systems, especially the ones that are popular, really focus on only a 4-function system, where you're only ever really taught or to be aware of just the 4. The 4 that you have a preference, that you lean towards, and then that's it. And there's a lot of accounts, and there's a lot of discussion about how to develop those 4, and how to be yourself, and to be confident in those things, which is great. I actually think that those things are very important to still have, and I think they do definitely contribute to a very meaningful, as well as a good point of growth. If anyone wants to take any kind of personality theory and make something out of it, I still think those are very useful. But ever since I listened to Beebe's Mr. Beebe's words about it, I was rather intrigued at the notion of, what about the rest? What about the other 4? What about the other aspects of ourselves that we may not be always aware of? I'm reminded of the iceberg metaphor, where we're only touching really the surface of who we are, and that there's so much more underneath the water that we're just either ignoring, or we're not really aware of, and we weren't giving ourselves permission, or even a path to even go into that. And I would say, in my experience, a big part of how I've telling myself, I'm you know what, I need to start thinking about the FE. I need to start thinking about the NI. I need to start thinking about the TI and the SE. Not because, oh, I need to develop it, because it's going to be a hard like that stuff is not supposed to be easy, because that's the whole point of it being subconscious or unconscious. But the point of how, what about how you deal with other people? We aren't alone, with our functions in the world. You're going to encounter people who don't share your preferences, and those people might be your friends, your coworkers, your parents, like just really anybody who might be close to you, and there's going to be tension. And I've found myself from the years that I've interacted in the community, there has been tension. And I don't necessarily think it's tension that I caused, but I was thinking of it in terms of, how do we bridge gaps? How do we bridge the misunderstandings that we might have? A recurring conversation is often why doesn't this FI person understand me? Or why does this FI person does this? Or why does this FI person does that? And then on the flip side, you have, why does this FE person behave the way that they do? Don't they understand where I'm coming from? Or like, where are they coming from? I don't really get where all this expectation, this pressure is coming from. And this isn't to say that that's exactly what these two are discussing with each other. They're just examples. But it's something that, because it's recurring, it got me thinking, what if we're in our pursuit of our valued or are the functions that we prefer, and that's the thing that we are insisting on within ourselves, would we be like abandoning the potential of us being able to look at our dark side of ourselves, which is really, and I guess in the context of, as a metaphor, dark matter, the place that we haven't explored yet, or dark space, maybe that's the term. Again, if you're a thinker, correct me and give me the words, because I don't always have the words. But right, like there's an unknown place there that we could still explore. And I'm actually rather intrigued and curious about what that means. So my personal experience with all of that is, I didn't realize I was doing this with myself. I guess I just had the value with my FI of, well, I just want to be surrounded by people who really see me for me, and I really want to be accepted, which are very, I guess, honest and genuine values. But I also got to thinking, how will I get that acceptance? What is the ways and paths of which I will get that? And how do I prioritize the people who I love around me to feel that, and to return that, feeling of importance back to them? And it got me thinking, like, my friends, currently are not FI users. I didn't realize that I had completely surrounded myself with people of opposing functions. I didn't realize that I had folks who were, like, one's an ESFJ, one's an ESTP. I got a friend who's an INTP. There's probably like one ISTJ, and I'm just using this will be for another video, but I have a bone to pick now with MBTI terms. But basically, these are the folks that, to make it easier for the conversation or this topic to flow along, I'll just use the four letter codes, because that's easier to follow. But yeah, because I've surrounded myself with those who value more FE, more TI, and more SE. And online, I have a lot of NI folks as the people I interact with. I'm starting to learn that there's patterns and vocal speech patterns, as well as thought processes, that at first I would say wow, what a waste of time. Or why would you think it like that? Or that sounds stupid. Or why do you bother yourself with these things? They don't seem useful. But then to these people, it is useful. To these people, that's what they prioritize. To these people, actually, I keep saying these people. These folks, this is something that their mind focuses on. And for one, they probably judge me for why is my mind working the way that it is. And I just thought of it, if that was how the interaction was going to be, is anyone going to be bridging the gaps? Is anyone going to fill in the missing parts about us? And leads me to that whole idea of are we forgetting our shadows? Are we forgetting who we are even unconscious, the potential that we can actually access sides of us that we didn't even know existed or didn't even know had the possibility of existing. And it reminds me of, because I'm studying, or I did a paper on how the theory of multiple intelligences kind of, well, I'm going to paraphrase this again. Pretty much the premise is that it all exists within us and that we have the potential to really showcase all of that. It's just that priorities and preferences kind of get in the way of, well, this is what comes out first. But the real point is that we can't really, well, you shouldn't really have to reject the other side because you have the potential to embrace it as well. You may not be good at it. I mean, if anything, we'd be awkward. And multiple intelligence is like, what I mean by that, thinking like, imagine if you were an auditory person. So you would identify yourself as, hi, I'm an auditory learner. I prefer things to be done, verbally. I prefer things to be more, actually, sorry, I completely messed that up. If you're an auditory learner, you prefer to hear, like, your ears are your more important quality. Like, it's the focus where you prefer to hear, like, podcasts would be really good for you. You prefer, maybe music would be a really interesting thing for as an angle. Whereas versus like a more verbal person or a more visual person would require, a different kind of sense to utilize. Now, how the theory goes is that it doesn't mean you can't do visual. It doesn't mean you are unable to test out what it means to be a visual learner. You'll just experience some awkwardness when you are told, like it's in a classroom, hey, we're going to be analyzing a picture, and that might be difficult. But it's not impossible. And I think that's the point that I wanted to make before with the shadows, is that it's not impossible. It's just hard. And maybe this might come off weird, but just because it's hard doesn't mean we should not do it. I think because it's more difficult, it to me it tells me that that's where it's right. And people can disagree with that however they want, because I know that our brains prefer to be comfortable and convenient. But I've been put on the edge with TI for so long, and to the point where I'm gonna make a joke. Like it's maybe this is Stockholm moment, like right now, where I'm like, I'm fine with TI now, and it's like, how long have you been abused by TI? And I'm like, I don't know, but it's something that I was thinking about, how whenever I hear TI criticisms, it used to hurt so bad. Like, it used to be the most insecure, like when somebody even questioned and said, oh, well, is that really what you thought? Or like, is that really what you think? Or can you really explain yourself a little bit more? I would take it as such an insult, because to me, I was so passionate about what I believed to be right, and the emotions were all lining up, and I'm like, this is correct. And to them, they're like, well, I don't see it. And because they don't see it, I would feel like a failure, like I felt incompetent and completely disarmed. Now I realize, because I guess I hung out with them so much, when they ask, it's because they're curious. Like, there was no feelings in there, because I guess I was assuming, hoping that they had FI in them to realize that I had a lot of feelings underneath, and I was assuming that they also had a lot of feelings underneath, but some people don't. And I think that's the best way to really look at it, is to understand that other people may not share the same things you have. And I think I made a point about this before, where we really shouldn't be demanding our valued functions in another person, expecting them to understand us, especially when they haven't understood us. Well, especially if we didn't take the time to understand them. And maybe we're deluding ourselves. I mean, I'm going to say this as in the first person perspective. Maybe I'm deluding myself. As a 7 in the Enneagram system, that's like one of my biggest issues, is delusion. So I always have to like tell myself, I'm like, am I imagining things? Am I not really, like, am I just not facing the truth? And I think it was a really big wake up call for me that TI was something that in socionics is an IEE, which is something that I also lean to as well. There's a thing called vulnerable TI. They call it polar TI. And really a lot of that is defined as feeling disarmed when a logical structure is in your way, and not really knowing how to interact with people who are of that. And it got me thinking, because I don't know if it's because I've had experience being friends with these people, like the amount of times like I'm roasted, the amount of times that I'm made fun of, the amount of like I've just learned to see it through their eyes, and seeing it through their eyes is giving me the, I guess, an insight. I've learned that with TI people, when they roast, they actually open the door for you to roast them back. And to me, that was very eye opening because I used to just take it in and like maybe secretly cry about it. And then now I'm going, why am I going to cry about it? They literally gave me permission to call them back out. So do that. And like another concept was how making giving people the space for them to express themselves. I find that like there's moments where I may have an advantage in a social situation, and then there's going to be moments where I'm completely at a disadvantage. I remember I was in a room of TI users and I was completely quiet because I didn't really know what to add. All these folks had really refined opinions and I didn't. And because I didn't, it was really hard for me to like keep up. And those are those moments where I would be bombarded with feelings of, oh my goodness, am I not did I not research enough? Am I not knowledgeable enough? Goodness, I'm like so behind of other people who just are really avid readers, and I have terrible study habits, and it's just a spiral. But in a way, that's both half true and not as true because there's an advantage in me where I absorb information really quickly. And I look at something for what it's usable and applicable to me right away, and then I can like run with it. Whereas I know for TI, there's definitely going to be a lot of focus and a lot of thought processing, and there's going to be like that kind of, you can see the gears turning, metaphorically speaking, but you can see it on their face. They're just processing face. Same thing with NI. Sometimes you wonder if this person's even thinking at all, and you realize that that's all they do. And I've learned that being around those people was something that definitely benefited how I've interacted with them to others who are like them. Like I know now, like when I speak to TI folks, not to be so insecure when someone like calls me out. I'm kind of like, oh, actually, thank you for calling me out. That's a good idea. Or I actually didn't think of that. Because in a way, why did I assign a pride or an ego to my feelings when all I wanted was just to feel? Here's how I kind of put it. If my goal was to express feelings, and I did, that was the goal. If the response and the impact was in the negative, that wasn't part of my goal. So why am I feeling bad? That's kind of how the logic is now working in my mind, or when I do the math. Why am I then going to feel bad about something when I didn't even seek it to begin with? There is really no reason for me to apply an emotional component to that. Now, before I used to all the time. I used to like be really sad and just be really upset when I'm being invalidated in some sense. But now I realize that this isn't invalidation. This is just people expressing their curiosity in words that I'm not accustomed to. And so I think that's kind of where my thought process is going. So I hope you guys get where I'm coming from with that. Basically, the point that I just want to take away from the lesson that I've learned is that really try hanging out with people who you aren't accustomed to. And I mean this in context of personality theory. Go hang out with the people that aren't of your valued functions. See how you interact with them. See how, and then like maybe make a log or make a logbook about your reactions. See where you feel disarmed. See where you feel upset or frustrated, or see where you guys get along. Because there's often moments where you think that we have nothing in common, and then you actually get in a conversation with somebody and you're like, wow, we have a lot in common. And I think that's really rewarding and interesting, that for me personally, I've definitely benefited from that. As a person such as myself, and I know this is something that I have to fight with, is I'm very judgmental. And I'm very quick on telling somebody no, or like there's going to be a wall, you don't get to cross it. Like I'm very quick on that. And in a way, it defeats the purpose of creating a connection and a bond with somebody because I've already made that, step for them. But giving people a chance allows me to ease off of my judgments, but also allows them to prove me wrong, which is even better. Like I like being proven wrong. So thank you guys for listening up to this point. I hope I made a lot of sense. It's that's going back to my insecurity with TI thing. If I don't make sense, it's often a really big deal for me. But I'm at a point now where you tell me if it didn't make sense, and I will try to, elaborate and explain, and maybe come back to this video with a response that's more structured. So who knows if that's the flow of this. I really don't know where this is gonna go, but I just really want to get that out into the open. I want people to hear my thoughts on it, because again, like back when I said this in the beginning, for the record, I want this on there so that it's out there. Something I can use as a referral back. With that being said, thanks again. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day, going through the motions of like, if you have any questions, definitely ask me. It's been a really busy couple months, few months, I think, since I last posted or uploaded a video. So yeah, with that, thanks again, and hope that we'll see each other again somehow. I don't know how often or how quick I'm gonna keep doing this, but goodbyes are weird for me because to me I kind of already know that it's not really a goodbye because you're all gonna see me again, that kind of thinking. So yeah, well, bye.